Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Welcome to the 4th episode of the Meet the Mancunian podcast Season 3. I'm Deepa Thomas Sutcliffe, host of the Meet the Mancunian podcast, which introduces listeners to inspirational Mancunians making a difference in the local community. Whether they run a charity or a social enterprise, volunteer or coach others, host a community or go it alone, all my guests have fascinating stories to tell. Sit back, relax, and listen in to Season 3 of the Meet the Mancunian podcast. Tune in on Apple, Spotify, Google, or any of your favorite podcasting platforms. Looking to connect leaders with their purpose? We hear from Stevie Orrill, founder, Today Will Be, in this episode. I'm delighted to introduce my guest, Stevie Orrill, founder, Today Will Be. Thank you, Stevie, for joining me today.
Yeah, hi Deepa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Stevie, tell us about your passion for authentic leadership. That was very interesting for me.
I'm not sure there's a short answer to that question, so I'll go into story a little bit. If I take you back to 2004, I was living in the States at the time in Tampa, Florida, and I was recently married to an American at the time, and my work papers had just come through. I was chatting with a guy in my apartment complex, told him I was looking for work. He said, "Would you like to try sales?" I'm like, "Sure." So he got me an interview. I got the job, and there began a 15-year career in technology sales. And I did okay. I was relatively successful. I was often a top performer. I got lots of cool awards with trips to the likes of the Bahamas, Aruba, Puerto Vallarta. Right? It's a very rewarding industry if you're successful. 2010, everything changed for me. I went from being really, really, really healthy to, in the space of a few short weeks, I was hospitalized, and I was eventually diagnosed with tuberculosis. My right lung was full with fluid, and I had something called a tuberculosis pleural effusion. And I remember as I was going in, that they said they needed to operate on me to repair the lung and to clean out the infection and prevent it spreading to other organs. And I remember as I was being rolled into the operating theatre and they put in the anesthetic and you kind of go off to sleep, I had this very clear and profound insight that if I survived, that I would spend the remainder of my life committed to living my purpose and making a difference to the lives of others. And my life was totally different after that. I was very much interested into the meaning and purpose of life. My neocortex was stimulated. And another profound moment in regards to leadership was in 2013. I was lucky enough to be sat in an audience listening to Simon Sinek. I'm sure he's a podcaster or a name in the industry you're familiar with. Great speaker. And there was one line that he said that in particularly stuck with me. He said, "In the military, they give medals to people who sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give awards and bonuses to people who sacrifice others so that they may gain." We have it backwards. And I think at that point in time, my mission was clear. I was becoming more and more unsettled in the corporate world. I recognized that at a time when we need it more than ever, we have a void of leadership in our society. The leadership goals, not all obviously, but for the most part, the leadership that I was running into and the stories that I was hearing from friends and colleagues and peers was all about hitting numbers, hitting metrics, hitting goals, sacrificing people, and not really inspiring people to reach their potential and to find fulfillment in their lives. So that's kind of a little bit of my background story and why I have this passion for good, authentic, honest leadership. I'm sorry, that's a long answer to a relatively simple question.
Thank you for sharing that. That was really, really, I can imagine how difficult that time was for you as well, going through what you went through. And then, of course, uh, experiencing some parts of corporate life, which is not that of responsible business. So I'm intrigued to know how you took it forward. So tell us about how you started. Today will be. Is that what came next for you?
Um, well, it came eventually. So I've learned that the journey to our destination in life, if there is such a thing, is not it's not an overnight thing. It's not I woke up and then I found this and I did it. There's a, trying different things and being experimental with our choices. Um, that I think from the 2010 moment onward, there was a recognition within me that there was something else to my life. That I was never going to settle just for a life of turning up every single day for a job that, whilst it was financially rewarding, it wasn't particularly fulfilling. And I tried my hands at a few different things. I actually enrolled on an architecture degree a few years ago, but that wasn't for me because what I recognized, as much as I love buildings and I love design, and I still get involved with those activities as hobbies, as passions. Where I'm in my zone of genius is in conversation with people, in deep conversation, when I'm exploring, when I'm probing, when I'm helping people. And I didn't really know about coaching so much as a profession until I started working with some of my own coaches. And I think that was a bit of a light bulb moment that, oh, right, you can actually do this. You can help people for a living.
And what does Today Will Be do? What's the ethos? Who do you help and support?
Yeah. So the name comes from this idea that we have today. And that's all we really know for sure. Um, and how often in life do we say to ourselves, I'll get to it one day, or I'll do it tomorrow. Well, guess what, Deepa? One day tomorrow never comes. So the name is really a recognition of you. We have this one precious life, which is incredibly short and finite, and to really help and inspire people to understand who they are, understand the power of themselves, and to guide them towards living and maximizing that existence. Um, I like working with people that are mission driven, that are have some kind of curiosity behind them. Right? They know, even if they've had some level of success behind them already, they know there's something more for them to achieve. Um, so I think I mentioned to you before we were speaking. Right? My mission, or my promise, is to create 1,000 leaders who put people before profit. And that's not to say that I don't have an issue with profit, right? With profit or wealth or any of the standard metrics that organizations set for themselves, the targets. I want to be profitable and wealthy in my life as well, Deepa. It's just a question of at what cost, right? When the profit comes before the health and the well-being of the person, um, for me, that's when we run into challenges. So yeah, so today will be is all about inspiring the next generation of leaders who recognize the importance of day-to-day happiness.
It's a great mission statement. Were there any challenges on this journey to getting to Today Will Be and towards as you work towards your goal of 1,000 next generation leaders?
Yeah, and there continue to be, right, but that's part of it, right? I've learned that if you're not failing multiple times, then you're doing it wrong, right? It's this notion of taking risks. I like to say taking little bets. And I think what I've learned is when you're trying something new, when you're being bold, when you're being daring, when you're stepping outside of the known and comfortable world that you're familiar with, it's the people who are willing to try things, the people who are willing to fail, the people that are willing to experiment and fall flat on their face a few times and embarrass themselves and be vulnerable. Those are generally the people who end up being successful. Whereas when you become more afraid, when you become more risk averse, when you want to stay where it's safe, you end up exactly where you're at right now. I have this formula that I use in life, Deepa, that where you want to be is equal to where you're at right now, plus how badly do you want to change?
I like that.
Yeah. And that's the question I continually reinforce in myself. If things are not working out, if there are challenges, if something's not worked, it's okay, reset, take a break. How badly do I want this?
Very interesting. What impact would you say you've made so far?
Oh, great question.
And that can be answered in any way that you should define impact.
I'd like to think with the work I do, even, not even the paid work that I'll do with clients, but just a lot of the events I'll show up in, the creating even free content on social media for people, or free events, free workshops, is inspiring people that you don't need anything special, right? I'm not a smart guy by any means. I didn't leave school with any special qualifications. I look at myself as just an average working class guy. I think if there's a message that I like to stand for, that is an impact that I like to give to people, it's that you can do it, right? It's just a very slight shift in your mindset thinking of yes, I can do anything that I want to do. And that's the consistent feedback that I get from my clients and different comments that I receive online. Yeah. So if there's one impact that I believe I'm having, that I'd like to have, then I think that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know it's not easy because that's why I try to let my guests define impact in different ways. For some people, it might be who they work with. Some people, it might be a little anecdote of somebody telling them what impact they made. Or somebody might, some charities have come out with actual impact numbers. So it all works. How can interested people reach out to you or learn more? What's your website? What's your social media?
Yeah, so my website is todaywill.be.com. I've been pretty active on LinkedIn, although I think moving forward, I'm going to create a newsletter with inspirational content, a monthly newsletter, which people can visit my website and sign up for. There's a podcast coming down the road.
Okay.
And yeah, in terms of what I offer to people right now, I would suggest if there's something that somebody really wants to achieve, if they know that there's more to their life, and they're curious to explore what that might look like, and even what it might look like to work with somebody like myself. Right. So you can't sign up to work with me one-on-one on my website, Deepa, right? There's not a product that you can buy. I do have various different ways that people can work with me, but I'll only propose that once I've had an opportunity to speak with somebody. I need to know what they're about, what they're looking to achieve, what their goals are. I need to be confident that I can help them, and we have to have the right dynamic and right synergy to work together. But what I like to offer, and what if people contact me via my website, is what I call a 20-minute powerful conversation, powerful introduction. And during those 20 minutes, here's what I do. I ask 6 questions, and they walk away with 3 things: a little bit more clarity to know what it is they should be doing, a bit more courage to action some of the things in life that they typically hold back from, that they typically avoid doing. And the third thing that I do is together we commit to one bold action that they will take over the course of the next week, which takes them right out of their comfort zone, with a view of getting them towards where they want to be. And if off the back of that conversation, there's a mutual desire for us to discuss what it might look like for us to work together, we can have that conversation. But we need to know that we're right for each other first.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that with the listeners. What advice would you have for people looking to start a similar movement in another part of the world?
I would say the one thing that you need more than anything is to really believe in what you do, right? Because I think you asked me earlier, what challenges have you had, right? The challenges are constant, right? With this being an audio, you're not going to see my hand right now, but the journey to success, if you imagine a graph, is not a straight line. It's up and down. So there'll be lots of bumps in the road. There'll be lots of rejection. There'll be lots of things that don't work, right? Things that fail. Is believing in what you're doing so strongly that you can withstand those bumps in the road. I like to say commit to something for the next 20 or 30 years, right? So for example, when I decided to quit my job and study architecture, I realized very quickly that I wasn't in it for the long haul, right? And that's okay, right? You try something, you fail, you move on. But eventually you find something, you're like, you know what, I can do this for the next 20 or 30 years. Is to create a project, create a mission that you truly believe in, stand behind that mission, and you will make it work, right? It's the belief that carries you through the tough times. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful.
I like that very much. Wanted to give you a chance to talk about anything that I haven't asked you about. You did say that you future plans include a podcast, but is there anything you want to share with listeners before we move to our signature questions that I ask all my guests?
So in terms of what I'm doing, it's more of a watch this space, right? I'm constantly creating new things, new projects, new ideas, all around that theme of helping people to really maximize and find their potential and fulfillment in life, and creating leaders that care more about people than they do about profit.
Thank you. I'm going to now switch gears and I'm going to ask you my signature question that I ask all my guests. What do you love the most about Manchester?
So Manchester's my home. My Yeah, my family came over here. My nan came over to here from Ireland when she was a little girl with her mother. My dad grew up here, and stories of him cycling to football games in the 50s, watching United and City. Um, so it always feels like home to me. I think I mentioned I've lived away for different parts of my life. I lived in the States for a while, and you know, I may or may not eventually experiment living in other parts of the world again. But whenever I come back to Manchester, it always feels like home. I think it's just got such a warmth to it, a really warm, loving sense of humour. Um, people are funny here. They like to be funny, but it's funny with a warmth that everyone goes back to the Industrial Revolution and the stories around it. Even though Manchester Airport is not the nicest place to be right now, it'll get better, hopefully. Um, Whenever I land at Manchester, it just that feeling of I'm home. I know my way around the city, and of course, all not many cities can boast the things that Manchester can, right? With the music, the football, the humour, the arts. It's got it all here, apart from beaches and sunshine.
I like that. So, where's your favorite place in Manchester?
So I've lived in West Didsbury now for a few years, and yeah, when I was out and socializing a lot more than I do, I a favorite pub on Burton Road was called the Drawing Room. It's a very tiny little place. I don't know if you know of it, Deepa. Uh, it used to
No.
have the best jukebox, the best tunes in all of Manchester. It's been a while since I've been in. I'm not a drinker these days, so my social life looks a little bit different these days. But when I used to be on that regular social scene, yeah, the Drawing Room on Burton Road is a place to visit.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. What's the most important life lesson you've learned so far?
So I like to think that my greatest skill, my greatest attribute in life is resilience, and that's based on being knocked down. Right, I've got my own traumatic stories from childhood and other events throughout my life, and I'm never surprised when I speak with clients or potential clients just the amount of trauma that exists in this world. Um, Things that people have been through, events that people, bullying that people have survived from people that they knew or even strangers. It never ceases, and it comes up almost every single conversation. Um, so for me, it's that notion of the things that happen to us are there to shape us and make us stronger and give us the tools and the capabilities to go after the things that we really want in life rather than strangle us and hold us back and make us smaller. So yeah, if I could sum up my greatest life lesson in one word, it is resilience.
I like that. And my career coach at the MBA college I just completed from used to say resilience is my middle name because I've also gone through a lot and had to reinvent myself a few times as we moved countries and relocated. So I relate to that. So it's great to know.
Yeah, very true.
If someone wrote a book on your life, what would they title it?
So there's not a great title that's coming to mind as you put me on the spot here, Deepa, but it would be something around a dead man walking. Right when I was taking you back to that story in 2010 when I was having a lot of my success in my life, and I look at some of the photographs of that time where I've got a smile on my face. What the photographs don't show is that I was emotionally and spiritually bankrupt at the time, and it took a hospitalization, a slowing down, and some deep and profound insight for me to be able to recognize that and shift it and turn it around and begin to understand and recognize the things in life that are important. Right, this deep and profound care of other people, of humanity, and the connection that we have with each other. I think my life was going off course. It was going on a wrong trajectory, and it took an earthquake to kind of take a sharp left and bring me back on the path that I was supposed to be on.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Stevie. It's been fascinating to talk to you and to learn a little bit about your journey. Wish you every success with everything you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, thank you, firstly, Deepa. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this, to speak and spread my message. And yeah, thanks to anyone who's tuned in and listened into this. I hope it's been helpful. I hope there was a nugget or two that you've picked up from this. Yeah, and if there's one last word from me to anyone listening is no matter how bad things get, right? No matter how bad a day you might have had today or yesterday or tomorrow might be, just peel yourself up off the floor, look for someone, a friend, an ally, and you've got this.
I really enjoyed learning about connecting leaders with their purpose. Thank you so much for listening to the fourth episode of the Meet the Mancunian podcast, season 3. I know many of you are listening in from different parts of the world or across the UK. I hope this episode and the podcast itself inspires you to follow your dreams and passions, inspired by the amazing Mancunian guests who feature here. Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Next week, Meet the Mancunian podcast talks to Nicola Talkington, who specializes in supporting women change makers. Tune in on Tuesday, 23rd August 2022 to hear the next episode. Please do consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a review at Apple Podcasts. I would also be grateful if you could share this podcast with a friend or a family member. Thank you so much.